I've been shooting film for a really long time now, and this is the video that I wish I had when I first started. It would have saved me so much time, it's unreal. These tips have all come from years of trial and error, and you're getting them all in this little video, so that's nice. You'll definitely want to listen right to the end because each one of these tips is super valuable and they'll help you become a better photographer straight away. This first tip is a really important one, and it's definitely something that I did by accident when I first started. It's an easy mistake to make because you think you might need to get everything at a shallow depth of field, but basically you don't need to shoot wide open all the time. You don't need to shoot at f1.8 or whatever to make great shots. The reason why I think this is so important is that I think we can think, oh, we need to shoot at f1.8 or 2.8 or whatever all the time. It really depends on what you have in front of you, and also when you're shooting film you don't have much margin for error, so if you're shooting at 1.8 there's a good chance that you might not get your picture in focus and then you've already ruined your shot. Have a think about where you are and what you're doing. Does it actually need to be at 1.8? Could it be at something like f4 or 5.6 to give you a little bit more leeway? Also, if you're taking something like a landscape photo or something like that where you want a lot of detail, then having it at a higher aperture like f16 or something like that allows you to get much more detail and get a sharper image altogether. So you don't always have to shoot at 1.8. There's nothing wrong with shooting at 1.8 or 2.8. Think about when it makes sense to do it, and also be aware that you may lose your shot if you shoot at too shallow of a depth of field. Number two, and I think this is a really great thing to learn. This is not like a number one rule or law, but it is the way that TV tends to shoot people's faces. So basically, when you're taking portraits, it's really great to try and start shooting from the shadow side. And what I mean by that is, if you look at me here, this is my shadow side, and it's the side that's sort of closest to the lens. So what that creates is shadow, light, and then probably a bit of shadow, and then light somewhere else in the background again. So you've got these layers of light which produce more depth in the picture. So next time you're taking a picture of someone, next time you're taking portraits, think about trying to get that shadow side rather than the bright side of someone's face. Doesn't mean you'll end up with ruined photos if you don't do this. I think it's just a really cool thing to start to introduce if you're doing portraits, just to give you those extra elements of depth alongside doing things like shallow depth of field and things like that. Looking for those layers of light and creating them by choosing to shoot from the shadow side will really produce stronger shots. Number three, and I'm thinking really a lot of these are just related to photography in general, but it's also more catered to a film photographer as well. Use your subject for scale. So to create a sense of how vast whatever the space is, it's really interesting to be including your subject as a reason to point the eye to a certain spot, but also to create that sense of scale. You can create this sense that this is a small person in a large place or whatever, and it really just adds that extra element to your shots. So maybe if you're a landscape or street photographer but you don't tend to include people in your pictures as much, maybe just look for that one person or few people that may just give it that extra element of scale, just to add those little elements to your picture. Number four, this is quite a simple one and a really common one, but it will help you a lot, especially in film photography. You really want to be overexposing by one stop, usually. It's fine not to, but what it means is you're more likely to be able to get more information from the picture, and you can easily bring that one stop of overexposure down a little bit in Lightroom or Photoshop if you really want to. If you overexpose rather than underexpose, then you'll be able to get the information back. You'll struggle to get the information from the shadows back, but you'll more likely be able to bring the highlights down a little bit. It just means you're a bit more likely to consistently get a well-exposed picture. Number five, and this is a really big thing, obviously it doesn't really make a difference if you've got a point and shoot camera, but for most of us, if we've got an SLR camera or a rangefinder, try different lenses. This is such a big thing. It can have such an impact on the way you decide to move forward with your photography. For a long time, all I shot was a 50mm lens, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's a brilliant lens, and I produced some work that I'm really pleased with. But it can be easy to feel a bit stuck sometimes and lack that feeling of creativity sometimes. And I think moving on to a different kind of lens, a different focal length, and a higher quality lens sometimes can really help reinvigorate and re-inspire you with photography. For instance, going from a 50mm lens to a long lens helped me to just explore a little bit how a long lens can change how a picture looks. And it's not just that it's zoomed in, it's how tight it makes the picture feel, how much it brings different elements closer together, and it completely changes how the picture looks. Experimenting and trying out different lenses is a good thing to do. Also, if you've got a low quality lens, then getting a better quality lens will make your pictures better in an instant. Number 6 is to use your flash. I talk about using the flash quite a lot because it can really change the way a picture looks. Some people's whole style is based on the fact that they use a flash or some form of external flash to cause the picture to look completely different. Experimenting with flash and using it in the daytime and things like that can really change the way your pictures look. I think it's a really interesting way to attempt to change things and explore photography and make interesting pictures. Use a flash, try it out, try and make some different feeling pictures. Sometimes they're a bit disturbing or they just feel a bit off, and it's because you're creating this different light that it's not natural light. So it's a really cool thing to try and do. Try out a flash. This is a nice little tip. Obviously it's not going to change everything, but when I switched to a Contax G1, I was no longer able to get the first off the roll shot. And you know what I mean, where you take a shot and there's that like strip of burn because it was an already exposed piece of the film. Using other cameras where you can do that, usually just like a normal SLR, is a really exciting thing because you get that first off the roll shot, and I've had some really cool shots that I've got first off the roll shots from. And basically just make the most of your first off the roll shot if you do have a camera that does produce a first off the roll shot. This is a really good little tip, and I think it's handy, especially if you're shooting something like medium format, because you don't want to waste film, you don't want to waste pictures. Use your phone or another camera to frame and see how the picture would look in terms of its composition. So if you use your phone to take a picture, just so you know, oh, actually, I've got this in the frame, I've not got this in the frame. It takes the sort of rushing and the worrying about film out of the photography a little bit. Use your phone every now and then, depending on what kind of thing you're doing, just to compose things and see if something's right or wrong about the picture before you waste pictures on your film. Here's tip number 9, and that is that not everything has to be golden hour. I think one of the earliest things most of us learn in photography, videography, cinematography is that golden hour is the thing that we all need. And yeah, in a lot of ways it is. So the first hour or two in the morning and the last hour or two in the evening tend to be the softest light, and your pictures and video will look really good. Photography and videography is not always about everything looking perfect down to the T, fitting the rules. And also, like, if you're a street photographer, usually people would just shoot all throughout the day. You can create incredible shots in all kinds of different light, and in my eyes, that is also what makes an incredible videographer or photographer in our case. You don't have to be in golden hour light to create amazing shots. Learning how to find soft light, even when there is harsh daylight, is more interesting and will help you develop more as a photographer than always shooting in golden hour. There's nothing wrong with golden hour. I'm just saying, push yourself out of that comfort zone, find different kinds of light and shoot in it. Number 12 is definitely something that I've learned from street photography, and I think it's super important in a lot of other kinds of photography. That is to try to predict the next moment. Often in street photography, all sorts of things can be going on at once. But if you can half predict what's going to happen, then you can create incredible shots based on that prediction. The same is also true for other kinds of photography. You may just be taking pictures of your friends on a night out or just on casually. And if you can predict that something's going to happen, something's going to go wrong, someone's going to fall off of something, and you get the picture, I mean, they are great pictures. That's candid, it's fun. And learning how to predict what may happen next and being aware of that can help you get some really cool shots. Especially, like I say, in street photography, but the same could be true for documentary photography, or you may photograph something like protests and things like that. Of course, these things are something that you gain with experience. Trying to work that muscle and grow that sixth sense will gradually help you become better and better and get those rare pictures, which is what everyone really loves. If this video is providing you with a lot of value right now, then please hit subscribe and hit like on the video. It's really appreciated. I think these are really handy, and there's some incredible tips coming up, so just hang on. I'm coming up with the next one now. 13 is a bit of a simple one, but it might be something that you've not thought of. Try a new film stock. You may be shooting with some of the most basic film or even low quality film, and just going on to a new film stock like, I don't know, Portra 160 or Ektar 100 could really change things. What is important usually is finding the film stock that's actually right for what you want to shoot, and that typically will give you the best results. Number 14, and this is a really great tip. Another one that I picked up from cinematography more than photography itself, but it is of course a really important thing that everyone teaches in portrait photography, but it's use backlight. So what I mean by that is when you have someone in front of you, you're doing portraits, it's a great thing to try and use the natural backlight that is there. Now, sometimes that's the sun, sometimes it could be that you're sat next to a window or something like that. But if you can have it so there is typical sort of almost like a ring of light around the back of their head, that means that you've got those layers of light. So you've got evenly lit face, so you've got quite a soft light on the face, and then you've got the ring of light around the back of the head, and then, you know, you've got those layers of light. It makes them stand out, and it makes for a really good picture. This is not something that you have to do every single time. You don't have to ever do it if you don't want to, but it can help you produce way better portraits. I think number 15 is a pretty cool one, and again, I think it comes from my time as a street photographer, but it's look for patterns. Looking for patterns can really help you produce some really cool pictures. And what I mean by that is similar colors, something that someone's wearing plus something a part of the building, if they look similar, that can sometimes create a really interesting image. Or an element like someone's hat and a cloud looking similar or something like that. Aspects like this can really make for super strong images. Again, it kind of depends on what kind of things you shoot. As a street photographer, those are the kind of things that people do tend to look for, and they help you to create really cool shots. Number 16 is to use your foreground. It can be really awkward sometimes when you're trying to compose a picture to actually think about the different elements that you could introduce into your picture. But using your foreground to sometimes as a texture to create this depth in the picture, or if you have someone in the foreground and you choose to make the person blurry and the background is in focus, that obviously shows the viewer what they should be looking at, but it also creates this interesting thing in the foreground, like, why is this here? It's a little bit unsettling sometimes and can make for a more interesting picture. Using things like flowers or shrubbery or bushes or whatever in the foreground of, say, like a landscape picture can also create that interesting texture and elements just in the foreground, and then you've got the actual picture that the photographer wants you to be looking at in the background, but this texture in the foreground can give you these extra elements that make it a more interesting picture overall. Number 17, and I think this is a great one, but basically just get stuck in. And what that means is, like, when I first started photography, I found things that I wanted to shoot, and I was like, I'm gonna go there, I'm gonna shoot it. No one's telling me to shoot this, no one's paying me to shoot this, I'm gonna go there and shoot it. Get stuck in, find something that interests you that you wanna shoot. That could be an event, that could be a specific place, it could be whatever. Go there, shoot it, get your results, figure out what you did right, figure out what you did wrong, and you will become a better photographer for it. Going out and shooting is the biggest thing that will make you a better photographer. Staying in and learning is helpful, but using that knowledge is what makes you a better photographer, because your experience will inform you what works and what doesn't work. Go to an event, go to a strange local event or something like that, and go and take photos. So we're on number 18, we're nearly there, and trust me, I've still got really great tips. They're not thinning out as we go down to 21, trust me. Number 18, I have forgotten. Number 18 is sometimes the subject outweighs the composition. I don't know if this is the right way to put it, but basically what I mean is sometimes just getting the shot is more important than trying to get the right shot and missing it. Just being there and getting the interesting shot can be everything compared to, oh, I need it to be straight. Oh, I need to make sure I've got this. Sometimes you just got to get the shot. This is another thing that I think is just comes from street photography for me. Sometimes what's happening in the image is way more interesting than if it had been taken in a typically good way. So sometimes you've just got to get it. We're on number 19, baby. If you're still here, you're one of the real ones, because you've stayed here and now you're getting some of the juiciest juice in the world. Really great juice. Number 19 is look for soft light. You may or may not know what this means, but basically direct sunlight is the harshest light, and soft light is either diffused light or, well, basically diffused light, which means it could mean an overcast cloudy day, or it could mean golden hour when the sun is setting or rising, where you get the diffused sunlight coming through and softly landing on your subject's face. Soft light, again, doesn't have to come directly from the sun in that sense. You could have a harsh lit day and decide to take a picture of your subject in the shadows, and then you'll get the soft light on them. Looking for that soft light will generally help you to take more beautiful pictures. It doesn't mean that this is like an absolute rule, like, oh, it's harsh light today, I can't take any photos. If you're a good photographer, you'll learn how to take good photos in harsh light, or you'll learn where to find the soft light. It's all about going out there and getting out in those sorts of environments and learning when to be shooting and when not to be shooting, and what kind of light that you like and where you can make good photos. Look for soft light and you will tend to get more beautiful pictures. Number 20, and I think this is a great one. I think that this has come from a lot of different things that I've shot over the period of time that I've been doing film photography. One of them, which is a really important thing that I feel like I've shot, was something called Shrovetide football in a town like 12 miles away from my town. This is a game that's played between the whole town, and it lasts like 2 days. An incredible thing, and what makes it exciting, or more exciting, is the movement and the feeling of the movement. And if you can capture it well, then you can make some really good pictures. So number 20 is capturing movement. If you can capture movement, you get the feeling that, you know, it feels alive, and it does give it that sense of excitement, and you can make some really great pictures by just capturing movement. This could be in portrait, this could be in street photography, this could even be in landscape photography, it could be you are shooting a wedding. But the movement, you could reduce your shutter speed, you get the movement there. Or you could have your shutter speed right up and you're capturing it frozen in time. It's totally up to you. But for me, capturing movement can really help you produce really interesting shots that take things to a different level. And we're at number 21. And I do think this is one of the most important things, although it is a bit, what's the word? Although it is a bit cheesy. It really is about learning the rules and then knowing when to break them. Because nothing in photography or videography or whatever you do is absolutely set in stone. If you understand all of these things, you understand the aspects of photography, and you decide that you want to do things your way, that will ultimately help you create your identity as a photographer. Learning these things and utilizing them helps you add more tools to your toolbox. And then taking yourself outside of that and going into a different place and deciding, no, actually, I'm going to take a picture like this, helps you to define yourself as a photographer and build a new understanding of ways that you want to shoot. And I think that's what it's all about. I really hope that after all this, you found it super, super valuable. I've enjoyed doing this because I really like to feel like I can help people get a bit better and inspire people. That's what I enjoy. I hope you've loved it, and if you have, then definitely give my page a subscribe, because I'll be doing all sorts of similar things that will help us all grow together as photographers, film photographers, and hopefully potentially be putting something together about learning how to earn a living and things like that. Give me a comment down below actually if you think that's a good idea or not. And yeah, we're all in this together. Let's keep going. Have a good bloody week. Have a good day. Have a good time. And if you are interested and if you want to get better and better at photography, watch this next video and take things to the next level, daddy-o.